I'm pleased about this opportunity to present on behalf of the University of South Africa on the strategic statement on open educational resources at this UNESCO Commonwealth of Learning Open Educational Resources Conference in Paris, dated 21-22 June 2012. Open educational resources are part of an exciting revolution in South Africa. The principle of opening up access to educational resources is changing the way we view the world and our traditional conceptualization of academic institutions. It is a powerful force which we may either proactively tap into or stubbornly ignore until we are relegated to irrelevance. This is a fearful prospect as it signals an epistemological change in the way we think about the role of higher education, sustainable business models in higher education, knowledge production, and the dissemination of knowledge. At the same time, the shift signals a movement towards the roots and history of African culture as encompassed in the concept of Ubuntu, umuntu ngumuntu ngabantu, mutu kimutu kabatu. I am because we are. As Archbishop Emeritus Desmond Tutu explains, quote, "You can't be human all by yourself. And when you have this quality, Ubuntu, you are known for your generosity. We think of ourselves far too frequently as just individuals, separated from one another, whereas you are connected and what you do affects the whole world. When you do well, it spreads out. It is for the whole of humanity," unquote. The Open Educational Resources movement aims to change how we access learning from being the privilege of the few to the right and responsibility of the masses. Open educational resources initiatives are seen as conduits for outreach to non-traditional groups of students. Through open educational resources, we will have a means to widen participation, thereby bridging the gap between non-formal, informal, and formal learning and promoting lifelong learning. Open educational resources flourishes on interconnectedness and the creation of knowledge through interaction, with the philosophy that the sharing of knowledge does not lessen any one person, but contributes to the whole community. Open educational resources therefore embodies this concept of Ubuntu. This resonates with UNISA's vision to be the African university in the service of humanity, and it speaks to our commitment to our social justice mandate. UNISA is a single and dedicated open and distance learning university in South Africa, and one of the mega universities in the world, has indicated its strategic intent to enable the development and use of open educational resources. The Open Educational Resources movement's aspiration to open access strongly resonates with our open distance learning model, where spatial, geographical, economic, and demographic boundaries must be reduced to facilitate and increase access to higher education. We are in no doubt about the powerful potential open educational resources to change the nature of our social relations. By radically reconceptualizing normative educational practices in our schools and in our universities, open educational resources will change the way we think about education on our continent, but it will do so only when we have carefully considered its distinct advantages and usages for Africa. Over the last 5 years, UNISA is committed to making sense of the new opportunities and challenges presented by open educational resources. Having lived through many changes to the shape of education, UNISA is no stranger to new forms of thought, and we have not simply followed the open educational resources momentum. Rather, as a community, we have shown our intent to help sculpt the conversation around open educational resources and to be a vibrant African voice in this process. We have engaged in research to explore some of the questions around open educational resources and made efforts to create tangible opportunities for educators and scholars to benefit from open educational resources. The conversation is no longer about whether South Africa wants to or should embrace open educational resources, but how institutionalizing open educational resources will impact our epistemologies, co-processes, human resources and curriculum and learning development. UNISA wishes to be integral to this conversation through actively helping to create a nurturing environment that embraces and supports social development through the crafting and use of open educational resources. As part of these endeavors, UNISA has established an Open Educational Resources Steering Committee and motivated for an Open Educational Resources Chair from UNESCO and the Commonwealth of Learning. UNISA is also the only African founding anchor partner in the Open Educational Resources University Initiative. UNISA is not only a consumer of open educational resources, but has contributed to the Open Educational Resources Pool. Our institutional repository contains some 5,000 items, which have enjoyed more than 2.5 million hits, approximately 200,000 per month. The UNISA Department of Economics' widely popular Econ Tutor provides over 240 video resources for economics teaching and learning and has achieved some 340,000 views. Our Learn an African Language online course provides free training in Northern Sotho, Southern Sotho, Setswana, isiZulu, and isiXhosa and has become a global success. These resources are testaments to UNISA's achievements in its early foray into open educational resources. UNISA intends, however, to expand its contribution to the open educational resources movement. Currently, the UNISA Open Portal is under development to support open educational resources use, reuse, production, and sharing. This portal will act as a point of congregation for open educational developers and users to collaborate and pool resources both within UNISA and globally. The UNISA community is also hard at work on the development of an open educational resources policy and strategy to align our efforts and further formalize our pledge to open educational resources. UNISA strongly supports the South African government's assertion on the major role that open educational resources can play in improving the overall quality of education in South Africa. The Green Paper for Post-School Education and Training, released for comment in 2012, notes the value of open educational resources in improving higher education in South Africa. The Department of Basic Education has had great success in open educational resources with the open licensed Siyavula mathematics and science textbooks circulated throughout schools in South Africa from 2011. Open educational resources is poised to help support the strengthening of the further education and training sector and to address the skills gap between schooling and post-secondary education. However, in order to reap the full benefits of this movement, it is essential for the South African government to formulate a position on open educational resources that supports the involvement of South African institutions in the use and production of open educational resources. UNISA wishes to be a full collaborator in the process and to support the government in further embracing open educational resources to improve the quality of and access to education in South Africa on a strategic level. For centuries, Africa's scholars have strived to pursue their love of knowledge despite the pull of war and poverty, disease and greed. Through open educational resources, we can help open up prospects of educational success to a greater sector of the continent, but only if we have the courage to take up the challenge.